Welcome everybody. So you love playing with the more realistic mod, however you have a problem because there's this awesome grain trailer you want to play with, but it is not yet converted on the databank. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, please check out my previous video, links in the description. Let's get started converting this one. So the first thing you want to do is you want to download the mod itself, and then you want to unzip it right here. You want to put the default mod in your mods folder. My folder's a little bit cleared out to make things a little bit more easy, but this is the default mod I downloaded. There have been no changes to this mod. You do not want to touch this mod. However, you do want to grab the name, so I typically copy that because you're going to need the name over here in the extracted folder. The very first step is changing the name on these XML files to get it to work with the databank. So you want to edit the name. You want to leave the last part because the mrConversionDatabank mod needs to know that last part to match it with the default XML file over here. So what we do is we grab the name of the mod, and then we do _mr and _. And that covers the conversion process for the name. And we'll do the same thing here for the grain trailer or the silage trailer. We won't be covering the silage trailer conversion process in this video, but it's basically the same thing just with a few edits, so it should be fairly simple. Anyway, we want to take both of these files and we want to drag them over to the, we don't have that extracted yet, so we'll need to extract our databank. And while we are at it, we also want to extract the more realistic mod itself. You'll need a couple reference files out of there for this conversion process, so we'll do that while we are waiting, but we'll set that to the side for now. So this is our extracted databank folder. So we don't get confused, we can delete the original or move it somewhere else. It's probably better to move it, so in case you mess up, you have something to go back on. And we will paste our XML files in here. As you see, all of these files in the databank have the same format. They have the mod name, and then _mr, and then _ and the original name of the original XML file. So if you just copy and paste like that and don't overwrite or try to type yourself, it'll avoid any types of misspellings. Anyway, let's go into the silage trailer. You'll see here that this is what the mod looks like, and I show you that just because we are not actually editing that one. We're going to open this one up. As you see, I have already done a few edits. Whenever you edit an MR mod, it's great to leave notes for others and also for yourself so you know how to go back and change it and fix it. All I have done is adding these notes. I haven't actually made any of these changes yet to the code, to the XML itself. I figured I'd do that with you just to kind of walk you through the process, but to save time, you'll have to do this math yourself. All of this stuff, all of these calculations can be found in this folder. This is why I told you to extract this. This is the more realistic mod by Durrell. He's included a lot of helpful notes in here under help modding, and then there's some other useful stuff up there if you're converting a tractor and a harvester. And we want the help file here because this is where I'll just show you this one time, but this is where I got all that data. So the original tag you add is right there to calculate the damper, the springs. Well, there's damper, there's springs. Somewhere on there, right there is how you calculate the drag value. We'll go over some of this, and there's obviously some other stuff in there for tractors and engines and stuff like that we're not going to talk about because it's not really important for a trailer. But this will help you get set up if you want to do a basic conversion. To get yourself started, it should help you with that, and then you can expand from tractors and other more complicated things from there. Trailers are probably the most simple thing to convert, followed by maybe tools. Tractors have a little bit more parts to convert, but they can be easier than tools. I found that I had a lot of problems with cultivators just because they have more parts that interact with the ground, and they're a little bit hard to get perfect based on the sensitivity of the more realistic mod. But anyway, let's continue along with this conversion. So the very first thing that so I take it back. I did add something down here. I copied this. Here, let's take it back. So the very first thing you need to do is you need to add the more realistic tag. And that, again, is in that help file that I found. So this tells the XML file, right? We're in this XML file that we're editing for the databank. It tells it that it is a more realistic vehicle, and then the drag calculation is right there. I had the drag calculation there. Technically, all you have to do is have this tag in the XML file, and the more realistic mod will recognize this mod as a MR conversion. But that doesn't necessarily make it realistic. It just means it'll work a little bit better with the MR mod. So let's go on and continue to make our mod realistic. The next step is we'll look at the wheels. To edit anything with the suspension, you need the total mass of the trailer. Now, this is the weight value of the trailer when it's fully loaded, but you do have to remember that some of the weight will be on the tractor. Not all of the weight will be on the trailer. So for example, if this trailer is all the way full to capacity, it might be, let's say, 25 tons. However, due to the balancing, only 18 tons are going to be on the wheel. So you can find that out a couple of different ways. One of the ways is look and see, okay, so this is an 18-ton trailer. You can also go onto the manufacturer's website. This is very helpful. Some websites are helpful than others. In a lot of websites, I have found that the actual technical data is in a PDF brochure. So if you can't find anything on the actual website, look for brochures. And this is the most similar trailer I could find on the Smith website. This is where I actually calculated the drag value from. If you are also familiar with Giant's Editor, you can head into the editor itself and actually measure with a new transform group and kind of measure the distance between 2 points for the width and the height. So you can do that too, but it's just as easy and often just as accurate to measure with this. Anyway, this is also where I got, okay, so this is an 18-ton trailer. Now remember, like I said, 18 tons does not mean what is the total weight inside this trailer. 18 tons is just the total weight on those wheels when fully loaded, because some of the weight will be transferred from the tongue to the back of the tractor. We'll cover balancing that later, but for now, let's go back to editing. So with the 18-ton weight, that is fully loaded, right? So 18 tons, it has 4 wheels, so that puts, when fully loaded, 4.5 tons per wheel if we're fully balanced. And you need this for the blow data. I just included notes here to help you out on your own conversions and also remind me to explain what the heck I'm doing. So anyway, we need that value below. I'm also saying that I am assuming a spring frequency of 1.8 and a damper of 0.2. You can, again, check out those values on Dural's, where is it? If you look in the, one last time, the more realistic mod itself. So if you go in here, help modding, this is, you're going to want to have this open in your XM, you know what, we'll just click on it. So we'll leave it open for now, just because I might reference it again. But anyway, I've basically transferred all that data over here into the comment section first, just so I don't have to keep flipping back and forth. So something else that you want, while we're here, something else that you want is you want to find in this same, again, we're in the more realistic mod, data, vehicles overriding, and then you're going to want to go to trailers, or if you're doing another mod, look for a similar mod. The point is we want to find, let's say, Crampy Bandit 750. So this will be a similar trailer. This one's a little bit bigger than what we're using, but you can look in here to see, hey, these are all the edits that Dural made himself. Now, he didn't explain everything quite as well, but that's fine. He still included which edits he had, and for the math, you can look over here to see what he did. So again, you can scroll through there to see and figure out what he did, the changes he made, just to make sure you're changing the correct things. If you have any questions, like I often did, that's the first thing I would reference to see what he did on a similar item, tractor, tool, etc., whatever is similar. Anyway, we're not going to need that for now because, again, I've already done this research ahead of time, but it's a great reference to use. So we will continue along calculating these springs. So there's the formula. One last time, I pulled it from here. And here is the math I did. So we have the spring at 58. So we'll go down here to spring. And I guess I can do this. Let's just do, just to make it a little bit simpler, we'll just do a replace. So the spring value did not actually change that much from the beginning, but we'll just change it like that. And then the damper, that's actually going to change quite a bit based on the math. That is the new damper. And let's just round it to 20. Nice even number. So we'll go back down here to damper, and we will control find and go over to the replace tab. Whoops. We'll copy that value and put it at 20, not 80. So then we will replace all. And whenever you replace something, it's a good thing just to make sure, okay, yeah, I only wanted to replace 4 things. It didn't grab anything else from anywhere else in the document. So be sure to check that. Or you can also, if you're using Notepad++, you can highlight a section and you can, where is it? Somewhere on here is, yeah, right there, in selection. You can only replace the things in your selection. So that's just another check to make sure that you're not screwing anything up. Okay, so we have the springs and the damper done. Now we look at initial compression. Durrell recommends setting it to 0 or some other amount close to that, because if you think about initial compression, there's not a lot of weight on the tires to begin with, so it's not going to be compressed a lot initially. Anyway, we're going to want to check that in game because sometimes that does throw the wheel off the axis a little bit, so I'll show you what I mean by that. By friction scale, okay, so if you look over here, the friction scale is set to 1.5. We're going to change that to 2 because I'll explain why I'm doing that. Durrell has said that the default friction on a tire is 2 based on the Giants, and you're not going to see this in his edits because he actually went through and edited this tire file, right? So this trailer is using this wheel. And in that file, he edited the friction. So you're not going to see a friction scale over here, but it does use 2.0 for most tires or all the tires. I can't remember which one he said. Anyway, we'll stick with the scale of 2. This trailer, as you see, it does not have a tire that it references through an XML file. It is actually part of the mod itself. So if you go to edit a mod and you see something like this that references one of the default Giants vehicles, you don't have to worry about that. If you edit the mod and it doesn't have that, that means it's actually part of the model itself. It's not importing a dynamic loaded part. So it actually, you need to add that friction scale. So I've seen some mods where they don't even have that tag. So that's just something you want to look at to possibly add yourself. And then the mass and the width, you can change those. I haven't really had a problem with those. This is something else. I'm actually going to delete the steering axle scale. Since I might be wrong about this, but I didn't see anything on the website about steering with this trailer. So to make this trailer realistic, I keep on sliding to the wrong thing. Okay, we're just gonna go like that. There we go. So I didn't see anything on steering, so we're just gonna delete that. And then we are going to delete that as well, because I want it to be as realistic as possible. So again, that might not be right, but that's what I am doing. So we have edited that. We've edited that. Okay, so now we go to brake force. Again, the equation was over in the other formula. It's a little bit more confusing, so I'll just go over my notes. Durrell actually has excellent notes in the brake config. They are different. It's a different formula for tractor or a trailer, so be careful. Don't just copy and paste this formula to a tractor or a combine because it is different. So as you see, it's multiplied by 10, so we're actually going to divide by 10 to get it to each tire. And we come to 2.7 if my math is correct. And that seems pretty, it seems similar to what he has calculated for, where is it, brake force, 3.75. So this is a heavier trailer. It's going to have more weight when it's fully loaded. So that holds about true. And again, if you have questions or you want to know some kind of comparison, be sure to check Durrell's default. Anyway, I'll stop saying stuff like that. It's slowing me down. So where are we? So under adding realism. Okay, so that should be a very good starting point for getting a trailer working correctly. If you want to be totally real, if it's something that's being filled, you're going to want to add, you know what? I should add here. Check center of mass. And we can actually do this real quick just by a rough guess. Let's go into, you know what? I think I deleted. No, I didn't delete it. Okay, so let's go into the grain trailer itself. And if you look back in the XML file, I always have to I always have to find it myself because I never remember where it's at. Okay, so this vehicle has 2 components for center of mass. And we'll see that when we get in there. But it has the center of mass basically at the very bottom, right? So 0.15. And then the other component has it at 0.3. So the easiest way to check out where the center of mass is, 1 second while we get rid of lights just to make it a little bit more easier. One easy way to do this is just create a new transform group and move that transform group at 0.15. Okay, so this is the center of mass for this trailer. Now, if you remember, it does have two components, the axles and the trailer itself. So the center of mass for the axles, they call them axles, but it's really axles and wheels, or maybe just the wheels. Yeah, it's really just the wheels. So the center of mass for the wheels is going to be separate than the center of mass for the trailer. And if you consider this trailer, is it really realistic to have the center of mass way down there when the trailer is completely empty? I mean, there is a lot of weight here in the undercarriage and the suspension, but, you know, this also does add a decent amount of weight. So I would, whoops, we don't want to move the whole thing. I would look at adding maybe the center of mass, I don't know, somewhere a little bit higher, right? It's going to be somewhere in here, and this is something that you're just going to have to experiment in the game. I highly recommend my test map or some other similar map where you have easy access for loading triggers and putting weight on it and just driving around in circles and seeing if it flips over. I actually drove around without adding anything on this map. In the more realistic mod enabled, I drove around in circles, and this trailer would not tip over with a full load when I was taking corners at 30, 40 miles an hour, and that is totally unrealistic. So again, look for the center of mass and try to find a basic. So let's just start with maybe somewhere in there. So like 1.2. Let's just call it 1.2. Okay. So we will go back in here and edit the center of mass for 1.2. All right, and it was 0.1 to the rear, so this is something else you want to look at. Yeah, it does look a little bit. It does look a little bit more weighted on the rear, so we'll set it. You know what? We'll just leave it at 0.1 and check the weight there. So we'll set those initially, and now we want to go up here for the other notes. It would probably be best, actually, to check out the vehicle with those changes first, and then look at adding these other things. But for the purpose of keeping this video short, we'll just add them now and check them all together. And so adding realism. So this line is going to get added to the fill mass line, and I will explain what, I will explain what that does. Oops, I guess I already added that. I lied. So I said I hadn't added anything to the folder or to the file down here, but it looks like I actually have. Anyway, so this changes the center of mass, COM, right? Center of mass change with mass. So it changes the center of mass based on how much mass you have added to the trailer. So if we look up here, my quick math, with 18 tons on the trailer, the center of mass is moved 36 centimeters higher and 18 centimeters towards the rail, right? Because that's it's this value, 0.2 times 18 tons, which comes to 36 centimeters. So if it was 20 tons, it would be 40 centimeters. If it was 40 tons on the trailer, it would move 80 centimeters higher. But 18 tons is our max capacity, so that's kind of what we are figuring this out for. We will leave that value there, and we'll test it out in game to see what it feels like empty and full. And then down here, we have, this is the other one I always want to look for, capacity. Kind of had to type with one hand there. Okay, so capacity, oops, I guess I already added that one too. Sorry. So this is the, if you remember, I don't think it is on this website, but let's actually look. So unladen weight, additional height, volume, level capacity, right there, yeah. So they have level capacity of this trailer at cubic feet and then cubic meters. I've seen a lot of American trailers, they use water volume instead of just level capacity. They mean the same thing. It's if you were to fill the trailer up perfectly flat, right, that is the volume of the trailer that it would have. Actually, in a lot of American trailers, I've seen a heaping capacity because you can actually fill the trailer above the level amount. And as you wouldn't generally want to do that for long drives because as you drive, that's going to try to level itself out as you go over bumps and it'll spill over the sides. And even if you have a tarp, it can kind of overload part of the tarp. It's just not best practice to do that. So I wouldn't follow what the heaping capacity is, because that's a little unrealistic. What Durrell has here is the fill volume capacity, and we'll start it at 19,000. You can look over here on his cramp bay. He has 30, so he has 3,000 liters under. So maybe kind of following suit, let's do 1.5. So let's do 18.5 for a fill level capacity. And this has a lot to do with, you just don't want to overload the trailer, and you also want to keep under the legal weight limit. I'm not sure what the limit is there for the UK. I know for the US it is 20,000 pounds per axle if they are, I forget how far apart they have to be, but this one would actually count as a tandem axle, so I think that's 36,000 pounds on those tandem axles, if I am correct. So this trailer could only have 36,000 pounds loaded on those wheels to be perfectly legal. So again, I don't know what the UK is. That is the US bridge laws. Anyway, so you can, if you want to play with that, you can figure out what value that is to be realistically legal, or you can just add in something underneath the total capacity to make it a little bit more what you would do in real life if you didn't have a scale or weight on each axle, and check those individually. I know modern semi trucks, they have all that information in the cab based on the weight on each individual axle. Anyway, we'll just go with that for now and test it out in game. All right, let's head back in and career, save game, hard, and I didn't have to go to hard. That's just reflex because I never play anything else. So I think we can keep all of these mods selected. Yeah, because my mods folder is empty. I don't have, no. We want to unselect that one. So remember, only have one map selected at a time. And we'll hit start. Okay, so this is the excellent test map that I have made, if I can pat myself on the back. We'll head in here. We will buy a tractor that, let's buy this one, 900. It's a little bit big for this trailer, but whatever. And I want to make sure that I can pull it and pull it fast. We'll head over to tippers, and we only are editing the grain trailer. So let's look at the grain trailer and just check out what those values are like. So here we go. So let's fill this up. The test map, if you're not familiar with it, it has lots of stuff, among one of which are every crop type. We'll fill with corn, which is one of the heavier, if not the heaviest crops in the MR mod. While we're doing that, we will head in here to the console and type in DEBUG. And now we have lots of cool graphs and stuff. So if you look, when you press G by default, it toggles back and forth in the bottom right-hand corner between the tractor and the trailer itself. So if we look on the trailer, that is what we care about, right? So the things you want to check are the load on each tire. Okay, so each tire has 3.5 tons when we are perfectly flat. Okay, there it looks like it shifted a little bit more to the front. But it was pretty level before I started moving. So that means our center of mass is pretty good to start with. And let's go around a corner and see what happens. Now remember, I tried this already without doing any of those adjustments, and this trailer would not flip at 30, 40 miles an hour. So let's see what happens if I do that. Okay, so that's still pretty, I don't know. I think I might want to raise the center mass a little bit higher. I probably shouldn't have done that first because now I have to reset everything. I probably want to raise the center mass a little bit higher because that felt like it took a little bit extra speed to flip. Anyway, I can tweak all those on my own. I just wanted to check one more thing with you guys and show you. If you cannot find any data, on how much tonnage a trailer can hold or is designed to hold for calculating those suspensions, one of the things you can do is head over here, and I should have done this first. You can refill it up. Actually, before we do that, one of the things we wanted to check is if you look over here, remember how we changed the compression to 0? I disabled my crouch button. But you can look at things through wireframe and try to look at the wheel axle to see if it is still, and this, I guess I should explain what I'm doing. Remember when we changed the initial compression to 0? sometimes that has the tendency to change the actual position of the wheel on the axle. So it might look unrealistically low, or it might look unrealistically high based on how it is set up with the actual mod. So the initial compression of 0 actually looks pretty good. I think we'll keep the initial compression at 0. And if I can remember what button to press, there we go, that I got all those. Let's go. So that's how you check the initial compression. Sorry if I'm kind of scatterbrained there. Let's head back and fill it back up with corn. Yeah, we have enough to fill it up completely with corn. And this time we are going to check something. So what we want to do after we fill it up all the way. Now, if you notice, we are full at 18.5. It says that we're full there in the bottom right-hand corner. That is the I forget the tag, mrFillVolumeCapacity. It overwrites the basic capacity of the game, or the original mod. So what I was going to test is if you check the total weight, you want to look at the weight on the tractor when, actually, let's do this first. So the weight on the tractor is 12.04. Now let's look at the total weight of everything together. So we have, right now we have the trailer selected. So if you look in the bottom left-hand corner there, that's where I'm looking at total mass on wheels. So 14.21 plus, let's shift over to the tractor. We have 16.19 tons on the tractor. So altogether, that comes to 30.4 tons. And if you remember, we said we had 12.04 tons on the tractor when it was unloaded. So that is a total weight of 18.34 tons. So at the very beginning, I mentioned that there's another way to find out how much weight to put on the trailer. If you can't find the 18-ton value that I found and then divide that by the number of tires, you can actually calculate it this way. But just remember, you have to factor in the center of mass and how much weight's on the tractor and how much weight is actually on the trailer. I think that I'm pretty happy with those values, other than raising the mrFillVolumeCapacity or whatever that tag was, the value that raises the center of mass of the trailer when it's full. Because in real life, you have to be really careful. See, so it's starting to go, but I think a little bit higher would be a little bit more realistic. It is a short trailer. It's not a ton of mass, but I know from real life, driving a trailer or a grain truck, if you imagine the center of mass on these trailers, it does shift quite a bit higher when you have them fully loaded. You have to be really, really careful around turns when you take a turn with a loaded trailer in real life. And I feel like it just doesn't simulate that properly with the current level. So I'll probably go back and edit that and play with that a little bit. So I hope that helps you guys test out and get some good mods out there for the databank. And as you saw, to get it working, right, all you technically need is this. To get it working a little bit better, make some wheel conversions, get the proper suspension in there, and remember to do these first before you check center of mass, because these will shift and change the center of mass a lot based on the spring and the damper. It could tip easier or tip not as easy depending on the spring suspension. And then to get it totally working realistic all the way, you want to shift the capacity and the center of mass, and also check the center of mass. Those really help add a lot of realism to your mods. But if you're doing it just for yourself, you should just be able to add that and get it working. But again, it's not going to work the greatest. So I hope that helps with some basic conversions. Real quick, while we have it open, let's go into my databank. And I'm not going to cover this very much in depth, but in case you were wondering, let's look at so this is the planter. This is the planter edit that I have been working on. And if you look over here, I added mr not a wheel equals true, and I added a friction scale. And the reason I did that is because these are not actually wheels. They are parts of the planter that touch the ground and spin. In some mods, you'll see parts of something, a tool or equipment that's touching the ground, but it's actually invisible, or it's not actually a real wheel. In this mod, if I remember correctly, these are actually parts that touch the ground and interact with the ground themselves, and they spin. So I made them not a wheel, and I set the friction scale manually. It means that the MR mod does not have to go through and calculate friction on a part that's not really touching the ground, or if it is touching the ground, it makes it so that it doesn't have to calculate the friction. It's a set value. If you look over here on the compactor, this mod is something that I have been having a lot of problem with trying to get to work properly, because somewhere there is a collision box that is touching the ground. When I set the friction scale to when I set the friction scale to 2, not true, it is true, but it's number 2, it works a little bit better. When I set the friction scale to 0.2 or 0.1 or nothing, it slides all over the place, and it seems to push the tractor. I think it's because I don't have the mod unzipped, but I think it's because there's, mods have collision boxes on them, and if one of those touches the ground with the MR mod, it's sensitive enough that it will push the tractor. It'll try to steer it to the right or the left if it's unbalanced. So getting tools to work right, to work properly in ground is actually, it can be hard. There's a lot of adjusting that has to be done, and Durrell said that actually even some of the default Giants mods, he had to do a lot of editing and a lot of adjusting to get right, just because they don't have to be made perfectly if they're not using the MR mod. So, the Giants, not that their default quality was bad, but it didn't have to be perfect with parts touching the ground because it's not using the same realism level that the MR mod uses. So anyway, editing tools that interact with the ground can be part of the toughest conversions of this mod. Tractors and combines, they have a lot more involved to them because there are more things to change. If you look at other types of trailers like overloading, some other things that you might want to consider adding is, adjusting the power that it takes up. You might want to look at adjusting overloading capacity to make that realistic, fill liters per second. And again, if you find a similar mod that Durrell has already converted with the default game in that location I show you in the default More Realistics mod, he has a lot of this stuff already done, and he has all these notes done at the top to tell you what he has changed. So it helps you not forget stuff like this. So remember to try to find a similar mod that's either on the databank, or I would prefer to go to Durrell's mods himself and see what he has changed, what he has edited, and just use that as kind of a checklist to make sure that you have at least looked at or edited all the similar features of your combine or tractor if you are editing something similar. Anyway, I hope that helps you out converting a lot of your own mods. And remember, as a final step, to put it on the mod conversion database, let's go back to mods databank. What you need to do is go to the actual mods that you are doing. If this is all you are converting, you can upload this yourself. If it's part of a multi-pack, you'll want to compress that into a folder and upload that entire thing to the mod hub, not mod hub, where is it? This thing. You want to upload it to here. So remember, multiple items like this, put it in a zip folder, upload it to the website, and yeah, obviously you couldn't do it in this case because I didn't edit the silage trailer yet, but that should get you started if you didn't know what you were doing with the database. I hope that helps you guys. Please feel free to leave questions below, and eventually maybe I'll do something more complicated like a tractor if I ever figure out how to properly do the cultivator, that compactor series. Yeah, I'm having problems with that, but I'll upload a video for those too. But some of them have had really good success with the planter and the Heliodor of those Lemkin packs. Those were actually really easy to convert. For some reason, they didn't either interact with the ground poorly, or for some reason the compactor series, it has a lot of more moving parts and it's heavier. It keeps on wanting to steer the tractor to the right. So anyway, I'll stop talking. I hope that helped you guys with your mods. And remember, if you think it's working right, feel free to please upload it to the databank to let everybody benefit from your mod. And one last thing, if you do have problems, be sure there is a thread right here, the MR conversion support thread. Ask questions here. Durrell is excellent at responding. Here is an exact example when I was trying to convert this mod myself. I noticed these two nodes, and that's how I found out everything I currently know about these nodes. I asked a couple follow-up questions because I was still confused, and someone else helped me out there as well. So, there's a lot of guys that frequent this forum, especially Durrell, and he answers questions based on these, if you have any questions, just ask there. I'll leave it at that and stop trying to re-explain myself. So I hope this video helped. Thanks, guys, and be sure to give me a thumb and subscribe if you liked and want more. And if you want to see any other specific tutorial, just let me know. Thanks, guys. Bye.